Good morning. Today's date is August 16th, 2007. My name is Tyrone Bellanger. Today I will be conducting an oral history interview with John Walter Dabrowski for the Veterans History Project in partnership with the Dalton Council on Aging. This interview is being held at the Dalton Community Television Studio in Dalton, Massachusetts. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Would you please state your full name and spell your last name?
My name is John Walter Dabrowski, Sr. D-A-B-R-O-W-S-K-I.
Where do you presently live?
Adams, Massachusetts, 117 Orchard Street.
What is your date of birth, and where were you born?
I was born in Adams, Massachusetts, November 17, 1922.
Did you grow up and go to school in Adams?
Yes, I've grown up to all the parochial school in Adams and then junior and Adams High.
What was life like for you growing up in that time?
Well, it was pretty comfortable. I mean, my father was a businessman, so actually we were in no dire straits as far as food is concerned or anything like that, but we did not have all the niceties that the more affluent people would have. But as far as the childhood was concerned, it was more or less normal.
What did your father do for a living? You said he was a businessman.
He was a milk delivery man. He owned his own milk business.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I had 2 brothers and 4 sisters. My oldest brother passed away at the age of 7, and the rest survived.
Well, you mentioned that your father was a milkman.
Yeah.
Was he a veteran?
No, he came from Poland, so he worked in the Berkshire Mills until he had his appendicitis cut out, and they told him that it'd be better if he worked outside, so he bought a milk business.
Did you graduate from high school?
Yes, I graduated from 1941.
Okay. What did you do after you finished high school?
My father secured a job for me with the Hoosick Valley Coal and Grain Company as a bookkeeper. And to be truthful with you, I did more lifting of bales of hay and shoveling coal than bookkeeping, but that was part of the deal, I guess. So everything was pretty good. And at the same time, I didn't last too long in that job because my father passed away perhaps about 5 or 6 months after I got the job, and I took over on the milk business.
And how long did you do the big milk business?
Oh, probably about a little over 2 years before I got into the Marine Corps.
Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I had 2 deferments because my brother was already in the Marine Corps, and I thought that it would be fine if I helped the family out by staying home. And then due to lots of talk and all that, I decided after the 2nd deferment to enlist in the service.
What branch of the service?
Well, actually, I drafted for the Army, and we went to the center at Springfield, decided to enlist in the Marine Corps because my brother was already in the Marine Corps, and my first cousin was in the Marine Corps, so that's probably why I picked the Marine Corps.
Now, you told me earlier that your cousin was a woman.
Yes, yes. My first cousin was Daisy, Dionysia Dabrowski. Yeah, she was a Marine.
It was unusual at that time.
At that time, yes, it was.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I was one of the first ones I ever heard of that would be a Marine. I heard of the WACs, the Army, and the Navy, but not the Marine Corps.
How old were you when you entered the service?
About 20 years old.
What were your dates of service?
Oh, it was something from 1944 to 1946. I think I was discharged March of 1946, and I think, if I remember correctly, it was somewhere in November of 1944 or somewhere out there for my enlistment.
Why did you choose the branch of the service? I think you'd mentioned earlier.
I mentioned, yes, I did. I tried to run it in, I guess. But like I say, my brother was in the Marine Corps, and my first cousin, Daisy, was in the Marines, so I chose that branch of service.
Where were you sent for boot camp?
Parris Island, South Carolina. Well, I don't think that was the only one, but that's where I went, yeah.
Yeah. I think that was for the East Coast.
That's for
Parris
the
Island.
East Coast.
Can you describe some of your boot camp basic training?
Well, at that time, I considered it pretty harsh and rough, you know, but also it was very beneficial to you as far as your health and your physical being, because it built you up into a stronger person. And now that when you look back to it, I think everything was justified, although at that time it looked pretty rough go.
Was it hard for you to adjust to this life?
Yes, at times it was pretty hard, because I was not as hard as some other people had, because I was a little more active than the city boys, and they had more problems with it than I did.
What were some of the experiences that you had in boot camp? You mentioned a couple of little.
Yeah. Along with the hardships that we had with there was a few instances where you could do nothing but smile, because marching along, and there you'd see the guys ahead of you couldn't keep step. They couldn't keep their rifles steady. They kept waving it. And of course, I had a sort of a smile on my face, because I couldn't understand why they couldn't do it, which got me in a little trouble. I had to do a lot of push-ups, because they thought I was belittling the Marine Corps or belittling the DIs there. So along with me were the whole platoon had to do extra push-ups, and that didn't exactly go over very big with them, as far as I was concerned.
You mentioned the race.
Oh, that was something I learned not to volunteer anymore. They had what they called a race around the oval, and being a milkman, you know, I did a lot of walking, and I was pretty good shape. So I took off like a regular runner, and I came in first, and then, you know, and I'm sitting there waiting for accolades, and the DI just says, "When are you going to start?" So I had to run the goddamn race all over again, which taught me one lesson: do not volunteer, and do not try to be too good.
You mentioned also about one of the recruits in your.
Oh, yes, there was a fellow from New York. You know, when they called for roll call, the DIs would always say, "Get a move on, get a move on." So one of the guys, in order to get all that, jumped right out through the window from the second story, but he made the roll call.
He's lucky he wasn't hurt.
No, he survived due to the training, I think.
Now, how long was your boot camp, or the basic training boot camp?
Well, at that time, I think it was 13 weeks, and that was it. It was a good training program. Now that when you look back at it, because you know, it did prepare you for the worst things to come, I guess. So you understand it later on, but at the time it was a little hard.
Yeah. Do you remember any of your instructors?
Well, there's Shoemaker was the sergeant. He was the main one, and then there was a PC by Osmond, and they were rugged individuals. I know that they followed right along with you. If you had any punishment, they had like push-ups and all that. They did it right along with the whole platoon.
The drill instructors did?
Yeah, the drill instructor. Oh. Yeah, any hardships like that, you know, I guess it was in a code that he did it along with you.
Can you describe how you felt the day you graduated from boot camp, knowing that you had successfully finished?
I think the first feeling was sort of relief, knowing that you did not have to go get up that early in the morning, all your hikes, 14-mile hikes and all the other stuff was all over with. And it kind of brought in a sense of accomplishment, that you measured up to their standards.
You were proud of it.
Pardon?
You were proud of it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Proud that I could measure up to them.
Did you get a furlough after boot camp?
You got 1 week furlough.
And you came home?
Yeah. They sent us home, yeah, 1 week.
What was it like coming home with wearing the Marine Corps uniform?
Oh, nothing but proudness. And more or less, you know, trying to, trying to show off, because you made the grade.
Did you have any problems? Did anybody give you any? Well, mentioned something about some fella there. Back home.
Yeah, at home. Naturally, you go out with the boys, and I got in a little, not a squabble, but I would say a verbal kind of that with National Guard men that thought that, he kind of challenged me to put a hold on him that he couldn't break. So I did put a hold on him, and I think he turned blue in the face before they told me that I better let him go.
And this is what you learned at boot camp?
I learned that hold in the Marine Corps. It was practically an unbreakable hold. It was tried on me, so I know.
All right. Where did you report to next after leave?
After leave, I went to Cherry Point, North Carolina. And I stayed there for about a month, and I thought that they lost all my records. I thought that they didn't even know I existed, because it was just a matter of showing up for a roll call once a day, and show up for chow, and that was it. And I was just wondering what was happening. Now, when you recall, any service life, I guess, is more waiting sometimes than anything else. But they did finally get to me, and they sent me to Texas A&M to learn radar repair and Morse code.
How long were you out there?
I would say almost a full year that I was down at Texas A&M. They put a detachment of 20 Marines with only a sergeant as a head CO to guide us all the way down from North Carolina to Texas A&M. And we had our own barracks, and they served us foods and everything else. It was one of the better parts of my Marine Corps life. It was like high officer service for us over at college.
Now, once you were done there, and that was what you said, 10 weeks?
Yeah, about
10 months,
11,
I mean?
10 months, 11 months, yeah.
After Texas A&M,
yeah,
where did you go?
Back to Cherry Point, North Carolina, for a stay before they shipped me out overseas.
Now, How did you travel back and forth?
By train.
By
mostly.
train
By
then?
train to go from Cherry Point down to Texas, what they call the southern route, and on the way back, I think we took the southern. At that time, we took the southern route back into Cherry Point.
Do you know how long each back
Oh,
and forth? I'm just curious.
yeah. On the way down, we made a stop at New Orleans. So I figure about maybe a day and a half or so on the way down to Texas A&M. But on the way from Texas A&M to Cherry Point, I think it was just one day.
Wow, I didn't realize it did.
Yeah, we made some stops along the way.
You said you went back to Cherry Point. How
Yep.
long were you there?
Well, this
Before
time here, I don't think it was more than 3 weeks where they had me ship out.
And when you shipped out, where did you go? What was your destination?
Well, we started out, I guess, into the Solomon Islands, Bougainville, and then we hit the Philippines, Luzon. I think it was Luzon that we disembarked, and then we got shipped down the lower part of the Philippines into Mindoro, Mindanao, and all the way up from there. We into airfields that we kept building and making up in there.
So what unit were you with while you were in the Philippines?
I think it was the 1st or 3rd Marine Air Wing that I belonged to. And after some service there, that was a scout bomber unit, and then I think I got shifted to another squadron, which is a Corsair outfit, before they finally sent me over to China.
What was your specific job while you were in the Philippines with the 1st Air Wing?
Actually, it was repairing radios. I actually studied to be a gunner and all that, but they were, I guess, in the last phase of the scout bomb divers. So actually, I ended up fixing radios and replacing the damaged radios that were in the SPDs. That was my primary duty.
How did you like? Do you repair them on the plane, or did you? What
No.
did you do to? How did you repair them?
We replaced the radios by of course, they were all replaceable. You just slid them into a chassis, and then you took the old damaged radio and brought them into a tent, which was like a radio repair shop. And we fixed them in a tent, and then, of course, we stamped them ready to go. And
How often did you change them every flight, or?
If the pilot decided that they're not working properly, they'd notify us, and we'd take them out.
Okay. Now, before you went to the Corsair outfit, you mentioned something about the bombers, that they were getting rid of the bombers at that particular time?
They were, well, of course, I figured that they were too old or something, as far as I could figure out, and the word we got. And we took them all out on a big raft and dumped them into the Mindoro Deep, which is off of Mindoro Island, the bottom part of the Philippines. And it's supposed to be the deepest part of the ocean, and that's where we rolled them off the rafts and just let them go. It's cheaper than shipping them back home, I guess.
Wow. And you went to the Corsair outfit, and you were repairing radios with them.
Same thing, same job. It was just another airfield, another place. I can't really recall. It could have been Cebu, it could have been Leyte or Luzon, one of those cities in the Philippines.
And then where did you go?
Well,
There.
That was a little touchy over there for me, because I kind of overstepped my boundaries. I did not. I got a little PO'd because the new outfit that came in, they got rated and they got ranks with the guys that were stateside, as that was and the commanding officer at the time brought them over and gave them rights, and they kind of skipped over me. So I happened to be walking by, and I spotted the payroll clerk jobs openings, you know, so I wanted to get out because of that, skipping over the ranks, and I did. I got the job, but I also caught hell for going out over my commanding officer's head. But, I got away with it because they needed the payroll clerks, so I got another outfit.
And then where'd you go when you got into the,
Well,
still into the Philippines, or?
no, I didn't stay in the Philippines more than 2 weeks after that. The whole payroll clerk outfit and all the payroll department went to China, and I went along with it. And
you mentioned stopping along the way for supplies.
well, it was the tip of Australia when we stopped, because they took us. We didn't even get paid or anything. We just had what we had practically on our backs and our knapsacks, and that's all. They put us aboard the boat, and we went. And we stopped at the tip of Australia. I think it was just below where MacArthur had his camp over there. He had a camp over there before we went to China. We hit an Aussie outfit, and they were very good to us. They gave us everything. They supplies and anything, cigarettes and stuff like that. They supplied us with all the stuff, and I always commended them for that. They were very good people.
Where did you land in China? Do you remember?
Yes, and coast to Tsingtao, which was called Tsingtao. I don't know what, since they changed all the names. Now at that time it was Tsingtao where we landed, and I think it was the French stables that they turned over into Marine Corps barracks. And what we did is paid the people off in Piping and Tientsin, and that's where our base was, at Tsingtao.
You paid the Chinese?
No, we paid off the American forces there, the occupation forces.
Now, how long were you there in China?
About not quite a full year. And after that, I got enough points. At that time, it was a point system. I had 45 points, and I was supposed to have fly back home. But as I got the word, some general's dog took my place on the airplane, and I had to come home by boat. Whether that was just an excuse or whether that was truth, I wouldn't say one
Somebody
way or the
could have
other.
been pulling your leg.
So it could be somebody pulling my leg. That's how much they taught of me, I guess.
When you came home, you came home aboard ship.
Yeah, come home aboard ship into Frisco. Yeah, I know the name of the ship because it coincided with a street next to where I was living. So it was the Randall that was coming in, and we landed at Frisco.
Now, what type of a ship did you come
It was
over?
a regular cruise liner converted to a troop ship.
A civilian
liner, cruise liner, and it was converted into a troop carrier. They just threw in more bunks, I guess, or somehow or the other, and I think there was about 5,000 of us on that ship.
5,000?
Yeah. Wow. It was a big cruise liner.
Do you remember about how long it took you to get back by ship?
I would say easily 4.5 days, at least 4 or 5 days.
And then when you got back, where did you land?
Right at San Francisco. And one of the fellas there, he lived there, and his wife took a picture of the ship coming in, and that's how I know when they come into the dock that, of course, she took pictures, and then when we got together, she showed it to us. And in fact, we had to, when it was nearing port, all the Marines were rushed to one side of the ship, and we were warned just start moving back or would tip the darn thing over.
I can imagine with 5,000
Oh, yes.
Marines on one side of the ship. Now, where were you discharged from? You were discharged right after?
Well, we landed in San Francisco, then we went by train to Bainbridge, Maryland, where we got discharged.
Now, do you have memories of that day?
Well, yes, good memories in a way. They try to sell you to think to stay in the Marine Corps and all that, but I had enough of soldiering, so I just went on. But I felt like if I completed my duties, which I guess most of us did during that war, it was more or less like a duty to defend the country and all that, and I think I did my share, so I felt good about it, you know.
Did you have any feelings about coming home? Do you recall that day, getting home?
Well, I think it was pretty close to Mother's Day or something like that, and I figured once I got out and I had my discharge paper and the money that was coming to me, I figured I'd lay over in New York hotel until it got to be so I could come in on Mother's Day and surprise my mother with my arrival back home.
Was she surprised?
Yes, she was, yes. That was my sort of a gift to my mother by showing up.
Was it hard to adjust to civilian life at that time?
I did run into some problems, yes, because, well, after having all those regulations and have everything taken care of for you, when it came to being on your own again, it was a little different. And I came home, the house, my mother's home, it was pretty well in disrepair, and I figured that I should, stay and fix it up for them. But that they try to force me to get a job, and I didn't figure that was right. So what I did is told them that I couldn't see any reason for me to find a job when I'd have to pay a carpenter more money than I earned to fix my mother's house. So I told them all the whole story, and of course they said no way that they wouldn't go along with it. I did write a letter to Boston, to the head office of the unemployment, which was running that 5220 club, which allowed you to collect money for 52 weeks. And they finally saw the reason for it, so I stayed out and fixed my mother's house. And that was one of the hardships that I had trying to get that passed so that I could stay home and fix the house up. Then I went to, after all this was all done, I did get a job at the General Electric in Pittsfield, and that was about it.
Did you take advantage of the GI Bill?
I did. I did in one sense. I signed up for flight school. Being in the aviation, I thought maybe I'd like flying too. They had a program with Great Barrington Airport. I signed up the papers. Another friend of mine and we signed up to take training, flight training, which we did. And after taking soloing and everything else, and figuring on going on to training for dual engine airplanes, the government instead shut us off, cut the program right out, so I never did finish it, but I did learn how to fly a small airplane anyway. Yeah.
You said you went to work for the GE.
Yes, yeah, I got a job in the GE as a machinist.
You were a machinist?
Yeah.
How many years were you with the GE?
34 and a half years.
Wow.
And all over, I had quite a few different jobs. Of course, the layoffs, but then having enough service here and there, I always got placed.
So you basically never
The
lost
one-
a job, even though you were laid off, they found something.
Oh yeah, they found something. The only time that we were unemployed is when that big strike came by. I guess we stayed out, well, not quite a year. I would say about maybe 7 months that we were out on strike.
Yeah.
Now,
Did you marry and have a family?
yes, I got married in 1950 something, 52. Now that's not a question. That's not an honest. That's a bad question there. Now, if that ever comes out, you're gonna get me in trouble with my wife.
But can
Well,
I remind-
anyway, we got married. Yes, we had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl.
Any grandchildren?
Yes, I got 5 grandchildren. That was something. After we were married for, well, after my first son got married, the wife said, you know, we're worrying about not having grandchildren. All of a sudden, she had 3 in the same 1 year. My 3 grandchildren at once. I guess that kind of filled the bill for her now.
Kept her busy?
Yeah, we got 2 more afterwards. So we got 5 altogether.
Did you keep in touch with any of your buddies or attend any reunions?
We only had one real good reunion we had, and that was maybe about maybe a year after I got home, and the other fellas. We had a reunion, we got together, and of course we had a few drinks, and we had a couple of bottles, and this one of us had a lot of property in Vermont. So he took us for a ride way past midnight with the bottles. we went riding all over the woods in Vermont all night long. That was about one reunion. Then, of course, the other one, he became president of the VFW, so I was in touch with him for a while, and also I stood up for his wedding. So there's only those 2 people we stayed in touch with, more or less. The other 2 just kind of broke up, and we never did see each other.
Did you join any other organizations?
I did join, yes. I did join the VSW, and my friend was the president. And I also belonged to the St. Stanislaus Club in Adams, and I belonged to the P&A in Adams. But those were not, well, like the VFW was a service-connected thing, but the other 2 clubs were just social.
Yeah. Do you feel that the service experience had a positive, negative effect on your life?
Oh, definitely positive. Definitely positive. Because I wasn't, well, like anybody else, I wasn't assertive enough, and I would, you know, dodge issues at times because I just didn't want to get involved. But after I come out of the service, I thought I was capable of handling almost any situation. So in that way, it helped me overcome quite a few hardships that life would throw up at me. And I honestly think that physically, mentally, and everything, it did help. It would be a positive. I would recommend it. I mean, the fact that if some youngsters, you know, need some, well, let's put it that way, need some incentive, I think a service life would help them out. I honestly believe that.
I understand that we have some memorabilia.
Yes, I picked up,
show.
I picked up a Chris from the Philippines over there. I just read about it, and I was fortunate enough to be able to pick one up, and then I got some Japanese swords and also a Filipino dagger.
I'd like
picked up a few souvenirs while I was out in the Philippines. This part of the knife is called a kris. Actually, it's just for cutting sugar cane by the natives. But they also, Moros, the tribe that uses these, also had a ritual to prove their manhood. They had to kill a person. And we were locked up that day. The whole day we were not allowed to go anywhere with it. Also, in one of the villages that we bombed, my buddy and I happened to go in there later and picked up a couple of swords. This one here happens to be a sword for an enlisted man. The officer's sword, of course, is more elaborate, more decorated. But believe me, they're both sharp as razors, so you really have to be careful. And I think this one here also belongs to a Moro tribe. Just a little dagger that I picked up out in the Philippines.
All right, John, I understand we got some photos.
Right, there's a photograph with two of my buddies from Adams, Massachusetts. Pete Petrie is in the middle. Red Kelly, Francis Kelly, is on the left-hand side, and that dark one happens to be me. There's a picture of me out in the tropics. When we first got our sports equipment, we couldn't wait to get some toss the balls around. And this is my buddy from Texas A&M. Him and I purchased a monkey. And believe me, that was one mischievous little animal. It caused us a lot of trouble. And this is where I had one of my deja vus, the Great Wall of China. I approached one of the gates, and that's when the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I swore that I was there before. And this is our ship coming in to San Francisco. My buddy's wife knew that we're coming in, and she took the photo of us coming in. It was a regular cruise liner turned into a troop ship. There were 5,000 of us aboard that ship. And coming into dock, everybody, of course, rushed to the side where we were facing the dock, and we were warned to start moving back because we had in danger of tipping the ship over. And this is a picture of me between islands on one of the boats that we were after climbing down in the front in the cargo nets off of a big ship. We came into the small one. That was also taken in the Philippines.
John, I want to thank you for your service and coming in and talking to us.
Okay, quite all right, Ty. Yeah, quite all right. Glad to do it.